It is scary how much fraud, like the whole mortgage market and the residential lending space, like it was built off of fraud, but like everybody gets approved. Like, like people are just buying these things, like 20 people lining up at once. But now it's the opposite, and people weren't ready for the opposite. They never thought about the opposite, but this is what's going to happen. Right now, we're entering that herd mentality where it's like real estate is not a good deal. It is risky.
The Canadian real estate market is crashing, or is it? I'm going to discuss it with John Flynn and what has been happening across this summer. So, John, how are you doing today, my friend?
Pretty good. Just sitting here waiting for some showings on my listings here. August wasn't too bad, right? Like the numbers now the prices are down. Obviously, they're down every August. Maybe it was me. I don't know. Everyone's different, right? But it wasn't actually a bad month. The numbers are, of course, they're not going to back up that statement. But yeah, like September so far has been like a ghost town, like the first week or so. And I don't know if it's because the kids are just going back to school, but like, of course, and you see, like, there's massive amounts of inventory hitting the market. Now, I haven't checked Ontario yet, but you've been looking at Calgary. And of course, this is not unexpected. The summertime is so for both sales and listings. It's definitely getting interesting. Things are getting bad, actually, I would say. And there's a lot of indicators that would point to that to back up that statement.
Yeah. So where do you think we are now, like in the bubble cycle? Do you think we're still at this like denial kind of phase in the market, or do you think we're kind of tilting more towards that fear now?
No, we're definitely past the denial stage. Like there is nobody left in this country that thinks prices are going up or the market's going to rebound anytime soon, except for that one Remax guy I saw last week. He's like, things are looking up in the fall, and we 54% of buyers are like, it's like, okay, like he did their own survey, but yeah, like maybe one person but they have no choice but to send that message out, right? And that messaging is more for their own agents, not the public. They're not even trying to manipulate the public. They're trying to appease their own agents at this point. But like, look around, like there is nobody, and I even said it on my last video, there is nobody in the country that is saying anything positive that real estate is going to rebound and prices are going up and sales are going to pick up. Like they're not even building anything anymore. The home sales, new builds are like lowest new build starts in history, in the 40-year history of that build's been tracking them. So it's and why aren't people building? Well, because there's no money to be made. No one's going to buy them. There's a big disconnect between the new market and the resale market. I talked to a builder just on the weekend, and it wasn't about purchasing one. It was just a general conversation, and she said, there's like $250,000 disconnect between what they can sell you something new for and what you could buy something on the resale market for that's 1 or 2 years old. And this is in Niagara, mind you. Now they don't do the starter homes. These guys are one of the few builders that didn't cater to investors during this big speculative bubble. But yes, it was I was like, there's like 100,000 or 100. She's like, no, with our product and inventory, it's $250,000 difference. So the resale market is, of course, affecting the builders, but the builders are just sitting. They're sitting on land. The developers are sitting on land and inventory, and they're just hoping. I don't know what they're hoping for. They really don't have any like prosperous future in the immediate term to build or to put the shovels in the ground yet. It's scary, right? And even me, I'm like, all right, like I deal with end users, I deal with families, like they're always moving, but it's going to get a lot worse too. And I don't think anyone's disputing that at this point.
No, yeah, and there's a lot of jobs also that are riding on like construction industry. And today's video is brought to you by Kinsta, the hosting provider I use for my own website. If you've ever dealt with slow sites, random downtime, and support that's about as helpful as a traffic cone, then you know how painful hosting can really be. That's exactly why I switched to Kinsta. They offer managed hosting for WordPress, and your site could run up to 200% faster with edge caching and over 300 CDN locations. Security is also rock solid solid with firewalls, DDoS protection, and an up to 99.9% uptime guarantee. And when something breaks, you get real answers from WordPress pros, not bots or AI. That's why over 120,000 businesses trust Kinsta. G2 ranked them #1, and they've got an impressive 4.9 star rating on Trustpilot. So stop babysitting your website. Kinsta will give you a free month, and they'll migrate your website for free. And they back that all with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Just hit the link in the description below or scan the QR code on screen to get started. Thanks to Kinsta for sponsoring today's video. And there's a lot of jobs also that are riding on like construction industry and even the construction industry themselves. And they're always going to try and probably spin it in a way that's probably saying, oh, we're going to lose more jobs than we actually are because we want these different tax incentives and things like that. But even them coming out and saying, yeah, we might lose 50% of the workforce. Like that's 800,000 jobs. That's not a small amount.
We are seeing not only layoffs now, we're going to see many more layoffs coming forward. 40 to 50% of the construction workforce.
That's
by some
800,000
estimates, jobs are at risk.
And we just had the jobs report last week that came out that was so shit. But even if you look in that report, construction jobs were actually up, which just makes no sense to me whatsoever. Like why people would be hiring construction workers, because commercial is dead and then residential is dead also.
Could be all those purpose-built rentals though, right? Because we have record purpose-built rentals that are under construction and started right now. So could be a lot of that. I know the government too, just with infrastructure project, like they'll always subsidize the economy with these projects too. So you see a lot of that road construction and all sorts and that's what the government's going to do, right? They're just going to start infrastructure and whatever they can to subsidize the construction industry. And there's even in talking about jobs, I was just on a meeting this morning with a management company, and we got talking about the local employment and like the hotels are doing miserable. Like we're in Niagara Falls, so everyone knows somebody in the hotel business. So yeah, they are laying people off a lot earlier this year, and there's no hours for these people because tourism's down. The U.S. tourists aren't coming, of course, as much because we rely heavily on U.S. tourism in Niagara Falls, Canada. And like people are writing, they told me in this conversation, like locals are writing, like, go back home. You're not wanted here on the U.S. Cars when they see them like parked at hotels and stuff. And now I haven't seen this in person, but again, this is from reliable sources, like local people telling me this. And so yeah, the elbows up crowd is like driving away. Why would you want to come to Canada? When you look at the narrative is not that U.S. hates Canada, right? They say, well, big orange man bad. He doesn't like. But it's not like you don't have to worry about going to the States and being hated because you're Canadian. But when they come here, that's the image we portray internationally right now is we don't like the U.S. and so it's like this elbows up, don't come here, protectionist mentality we have of Canada. So yeah, that would be limited. And the ones that do come, these kinds of things are happening in the Falls. And also with the hotels. So the hotel owners, sure, they're making money because they're again being subsidized by the government with the migrants and the forced fire evacuees from Manitoba and whatnot. They're still living in Niagara and they're getting subsidized and they're paying the hotel owners. But then you have the support staff in the hotel, the tips. They're not getting tips. You think these migrants are tipping our Canadian tip culture? Like, what do they think of Canadian tip culture? Right? Yeah. And the valet, they have no cars to valet. They have, you know what I mean? There's like this whole industry, this whole sub-industry within the industry that's suffering. Again, we see unemployment up to 7.1, and that was a huge jump. Like I track that stuff, as you know, and this is like one of my leading indicators, and I'm just like, whoa, that was huge. But again, this is what we're seeing. We're seeing it, everything's playing out. I just don't know how the government can keep kicking this can down the road or keep this thing going. And they're going to try to do that, as what Carney just announced, $5 billion in handouts or something last week. Like I didn't even pay attention because it's just the same propaganda that they're always going on about. So insane.
Yeah, and a lot of that money goes to waste as well. So it's always like, how much is actually actually reaching their end business or whoever, right? It's always hard to say. Looking into the future and looking at the trajectory of unemployment, are you seeing any people that are like holding back right now from buying and they're just waiting for rates to drop? Obviously, there's this huge narrative that the Bank of Canada is now going to drop, and there's a CPI report that comes out the day before they announce whether they're cutting or not. But do you really think like 25, 50 basis points, if they cut, that's really going to change the dynamics of the market much?
So nobody's talking about rates anymore, except for people that are coming up for renewal. But like, I haven't heard anyone talk about like, once the rates go down, the market's like, no one's even saying that anymore. Remember, they used to say that because they know it's past that point of that hope now, because we are entering the fear stage, and the fear stage is like, you could literally say, look, I got a brand new house for this price, and people wouldn't care because they know that there's more risk to the downside. And everybody, like when I sell a house to anybody, I'm like, look, you have to be prepared for the downside. Like, you want to buy this house, that's great, but you know, my job to tell you not just what some agents tell you about, don't worry, it's going to go back up by 2030 or whatever, right? And then that's the easy way out. And you know what, they're probably right. Maybe it will go back up by then, or maybe it won't. What about in the short term? What about if you need to sell? Like, your house will be worth less. Like, if you're going to buy a house, you have to realize this. And and like the clients are just like, yeah, no, we know. We like, they're not even like, oh, really? Like they're like, yeah, we know. They know exactly what's happening. So yeah, I think it's just widespread. And again, this all points to market sentiment, right? And this is where big psychological thing is, or in real estate, it's like this psychological. We had the one side where it was like, real estate's never going to go down. The euphoria of real estate, it couldn't. Like, how could it ever? Like, this is like, people are just buying these things, like 20 people lining up at once. But now it's the opposite, and people weren't ready for the opposite. They never thought about the opposite, but this is what's going to happen. And you're going to have like deals. You're going to say, look at this house. And the people are going to say, I don't care. Like, it's like anything, like Bitcoin, right? He wanted to hear Bitcoin. If I could tell you right now, buy a Bitcoin for, 50,000 or 20,000, like, you'd probably be like, I don't know, man, there's a reason for this. Like, this seems sketchy to me, right? What's the downside risk? Everything else, like all these other asset classes are going up. Like, we don't even talk about Bitcoin, right? Gold and all the stocks. And look at real estate. Like, why is real estate going down? Because it's cash intensive, carrying costs, risky. It's super risky. Like, real estate is the riskiest asset right now in the basket. Like, I don't know what else is riskier. One more thing. I put this on my X. So I was at a gathering. It was someone's 50th birthday on the weekend, and somebody says, "Here, talk to John," whatever. And so the girl says, "Hey, thinking about getting an investment property." And I'm like, "Oh boy," right? And I'm like, and she's like, "Well, like this." I'm like, "Well, it's you won't be able to break even. You're not gonna be able to cash flow. It's like the numbers don't math. Like, there's nothing that's gonna help you buying an investment unless you got like tons of money. Unless you're paying for it cash and you're just gonna like park the money and collect the rent. Like, it doesn't make sense." And she's like, "Well, how about flipping?" And it's like, and we're going through all these scenarios. I'm like, nope. I see flippers lose like big time, right? Like, these days. Not my clients, thankfully, but I see them come on the market. You're literally just chasing the market down at this point. So there is no way to make money in real estate unless you're involved in some Ponzi scheme like that guy. And I think he was in Alberta, wasn't it? Some real estate guy. It was either a mortgage broker or real estate. Like, that's the only way you're going to make money in real estate, is by ripping people off at this point, which again is just not out of the realm of what's going to happen. So
no, I totally agree with you there. And what do you think about these markets like Newfoundland, like Montreal, these few places that are still going up? And obviously we've had other places that I think it's important to mention, like Calgary, that, that was them this time last year, and eventually it's hit the market. What's going on there? You've got high unemployment. Alberta's unemployment rate now, I think, is up to 8.6%. So it's higher than the average, and I think it's second of all the provinces now. So unemployment heading up there a lot. And you had a lot of the flippers that were moving out there, flipping homes, because I guess they have to go to a market that's going up. If that's their whole business, just flipping houses, like, they have to be in a market that's going up. So part of me is like, I wonder if these people are just like following where the places are that's going up, because tons of people from BC and Ontario moved into Calgary and Alberta last year and the year before. You saw it in the migration stats.
all of these places are like secondary and tertiary markets compared to Ontario and BC. Calgary is probably the closest in line, and you can see they've hit their peak. I just looked briefly at the numbers. I'm going to gather them all for my video tomorrow. But Calgary, it was like the first month, August, in like 2.5 years that it was almost negative or almost neutral year-over-year growth from August 2024. So we're seeing that growth stop. Like September's number is going to come out, you're going to see year-over-year price declines most likely, or break even at best. It was barely break even in August. It was almost a decline. So you're seeing that when you're looking at places like Newfoundland and stuff, like they have such a low price point compared to everywhere else in the country that they're still catching up to, I guess, housing inflation at this point.
Right.
But they're not big markets, and you sacrifice to move to these places too, right? It's like there's not much going on out there unless you're into mining or something. Quebec, I got no clue. I don't speak French. I don't know what's going on out there. Like they're still reaching new highs this year, and I don't know if it's like maybe it's like the socialist mentality out there that the government gives you everything you want, and they actually have good daycare, from what I understand. Maybe it's I don't know why Quebec and Montreal are still doing so well, but again, it is a secondary market at this at the same time. Just like if you look at Saskatchewan's still making new highs. We'll see how it looks for August, but I'm guessing they are up year over year. But again, Alberta is the number one second in line to Ontario and BC, and they've turned the page there. And look at the inventory, look at the unemployment, and I have people, actually I just posted again today on X that 2 people moved back from out of province to Ontario because the grass wasn't greener. Like there's nothing different really going on in any of these provinces. You just get a house for a little bit cheaper, but you're trading, okay, the weather's not going to be as nice, and maybe there's different kind of people or something, a different culture out there. But so one came from Calgary. They moved out there 2 years ago, and the other one came from New Brunswick. I can't remember how long ago she moved out there, but she's from Ontario, in the last few years. And they both, came right back to Ontario. And so there's a lot of that remigration, or whatever you call it, coming back to Ontario now. And it's not because they're like, we made a mistake, it's so great. It's just they have family here, and it's just easier for them than, being away from their extended family and flying. Like they're missing all these birthday parties, and people are having grandkids and whatever, right? So there's a lot of that going on too. So, and I saw this, and I've mentioned this many times, I've seen this like in the past where people would move to a smaller part of the Niagara region, in the last real estate cycle. But now, because prices were so insane, but that was when, $20,000 made a big difference. Now $20,000 doesn't make a big difference. So they're moving for $200,000 cheaper to Calgary or wherever else, Newfoundland or New Brunswick. But again, it doesn't buy you happiness. You might think that it frees up some cash flow, but it's not. Is it worth it? And it's not worth it for most people.
No, I think you're totally right on that. And I've seen it myself, because when I used to live in Calgary, like when we moved there, nobody was moving there. And it was like a really bad time at that point in Alberta's history. And when you looked at like what was going on, I mean, we were even looking for rentals at that point. And a lot of the houses that were up for rental were houses that wouldn't sell. And we even moved into a house actually that was for sale that wouldn't sell. And then the owners actually got an offer when they took it off the market. And then it was really interesting because they had moved to BC, and they were like telling me that, all our family's in BC, but actually we wanted to stay, but we both got laid off, and what could we do? And they were people who moved in like only 2 or 3 years before that to Alberta. It's just crazy to me that we see this on repeat. Like these cycles just repeat the exact same way. People make the same mistakes over and over again. And you would think now with like social media and stuff, and people like me even posting videos about these cycles, that maybe people would get wise to it, but it just doesn't make any difference. It's just this herd mentality that seems to go on in these markets.
And you're right, it is the herd mentality. And you could give people all the information in the world, and it's like just humans like, jumping off cliffs with no parachutes. You'd have people following them. But again, that herd mentality works both ways. So it'll be like, don't go to the US shopping. It's not good. We're Canadians, but it'll be the same. Don't buy a house. Right now we're entering that herd mentality where it's like real estate is not a good deal. It is risky. And so like I said, it goes both ways. So we'll see how bad it gets. But yeah, again, back to the fear stage. Like we're literally just entering the fear stage. Like I think last time we talked, like we were waiting for this fear stage for like years. Like it takes so long, like certain parts of these cycles. But if you look at that chart you have, when you get to the fear and the capitulation, you can see the fear stage. It's like this hump that you're going through, that it takes a while, right, to get to it, because you're going, and those are like years, those peaks and valleys. Then you look at the fear and capitulation, it's a pretty quick ride. It's pretty drastic, and it's more drastic than the cycle on the upside. So like it's getting interesting. And again, based on the data that I looked at, and that I've compiled, we're like right on track. Like it's really like very easy to foresee what's going to happen, and you're seeing it. You're seeing, like, you look at my home buying recipe that I haven't, nothing's changed in a little while on that actually, but you're having those mortgage arrears increase. You're having the unemployment increase. You have the interest rates that have already gone down, and prices are continuing to go down with the interest rates. People used to say like, no, when interest rates go down, prices go up. It just makes sense, right? It's just like costs you less to pay for a house, and it's like, no, interest rates go down, prices continue to go down along with them. So it's very like basic like indicators and fundamentals we look at here, but like the Bank of Canada, like they know all this stuff, but they're not going to sit there in their press releases and tell you, hey, we got another like 2 years, where we estimate the bottom. I would love for these people, whether it's these real estate franchises or the economists at the banks, or then they do have some downside, forecasts, which they, of course, they're not going to tell you worse than it is. They're always, lighten them up a bit. But I would love for somebody, pay the economist to pay these people. Like, I'm not an economist. Let me know when the bottom is. Like, that's what I want to know. Like, or give me a range. Like, right. So, and nobody likes to call the bottom, obviously. But you guys are like, they're calling the yearly increases. I tried to engage with Grok and just say, look, I forget what I asked, but it was like something along the lines of like, what do you forecast real estate prices in Canada in the next 5 years? And Grok comes back to me with like Grok cites all the sources or where it gets its information, and they're like, well, we expect. I think I put it though. How low do you think real estate prices will go, or something? I didn't say what do you forecast, but I was kind of loading the question a bit for Grok. Grok's like, we don't forecast any lower prices. Like Canadian Real Estate Association and Royal LePage or whoever, their studies say that prices are going to go up 5% year over year. I'm like, and they're like, but this is like how they get to manipulate the markets, where it's like, this is all part of it. It's just like lobbying the government, but they're lobbying the public, I guess, to say like, look, real estate, we estimate this, and people read those forecasts, they listen to them, they're on the news, these forecasts. And I had one person yesterday. I was putting a sign on a lawn, and it was in Niagara Lake. Actually, I'll tell you, Niagara Lake. So Niagara Lake's very like who's who, and so I have like 2 listings down there, and some agents are like, I just want a listing in Niagara. I want to get my name known in Niagara Lake because it's like, the most expensive market around here. And I'm like, $3 million, I don't want it. You know how hard that house is going to be sell. Like, I don't want anything to do with it, right, in Niagara. But I like the regular homes. 2 people I talked to putting this sign on the lawn, and both of them were like the same thing. They're like, oh, which company you work for, right? Like, it's like nobody asks this question. Nobody's like, hey, they say, hey, is that house going for sale, or how much is it going to be, or whatever, right? First question both of them asked, are you putting? Oh, who do you work for? What's the company? Oh, where is that? Like, it's just like, what are you doing in my neighborhood, right?
One thing I think a lot of people forget as well when we're talking about like fear, capitulation, and going into that is like, you obviously have the mortgage arrears, which you talked about, that are rising. I've seen your charts on power of sales, and they're rising as well. But basically, obviously, you have all that happen. That then impacts lending, and then lending, they don't want to lend. Like, obviously, if you're a bank and you're you're seeing unemployment is rising, you're seeing the economy is weak. Like, are you really then going to start lending really freely to people? No, you're going to be like, hold on a second, I don't want to take on that kind of risk. And even when I went through all the banks and all their loans and their loan growth, there was only like one bank out of the big five which was having loans grow. And it will be interesting to see how that data hits with what they just reported. But it was CIBC. So like the loans aren't growing, and it might be a case of, oh, people don't want the mortgages. Would you agree that there has been a shitload of fraud in the Canadian housing market over this past like 4 years?
It is scary how much fraud. Like the whole mortgage market and the residential lending space, like it was built off of fraud. Like, so I heard somebody talk about this, and they said in the States, if we did like if we do what we do in Canada, sorry, what in the States, you would be in jail. Like the mortgage fraud. Like, so mortgage fraud is like, hey, I'm buying another house and I'm moving in, but I'm not actually going to move in, but I just want the mortgage with like 5 or 10% down, right? This is like regular. That's like the light, right? That's just like speeding 5 kilometers over an hour over the limit in Canada. And but back to your point now, when you're talking about the mortgage growth with these big banks, so the mortgage growth again, I don't track that, you do, thankfully, and CIBC is the only one, but it's, I believe, and again, this is just anecdotal evidence from me being on the ground, from what I see, I think that is from just the lack of Canadians taking out mortgages and getting mortgages because the sales are so low, and that's it. And maybe they have tried to get qualified or pre-qualified, and it just never made it to the thing. But we used to go through times where we put an offer, the mortgage broker would like, just put the offer and we'll try to get you approved. Like, I can't remember the last time someone didn't get approved for a mortgage that I'm working with. Now maybe it's just the pre-qualification is a lot better these days, but like everybody gets approved. Like I just sold a house to some people now. They don't have a big mortgage, but like they're on disability. Like they got the mortgage, right? So, but it's like literally the Canadian government just paying the bank directly at that point. I honestly, like, I just thought about the other day, I'm like mortgage qualification is not an issue. The banks aren't tightening because they're just taking. They're still the volume is so low they don't have to tighten. It's just there's too little volume for them to tighten. And so yeah, I think that it'll be interesting to see if there's any data on that. But yeah, they're approving everything still.
That's really interesting to know and good to know. Yeah, because I remember like post financial crisis in the UK, and it was really interesting because obviously they were doing QE and all these things that people think like make the economy better. People like the Bank of Canada, that's what they think. They think doing QE, dropping rates to zero, that will miraculously start the economy. It will start government borrowing, that's for sure. But back in like 2011, 2012, we were looking at investment properties, and this is in the UK. The UK got hit hard by the financial crisis, and we were going around to lenders and we didn't own any assets, right? So we were just trying to buy an investment property as an investment, and they were like just laughing us out the door. We had the income, but they were like putting all these terms in there that were just like completely crazy. They were like, you can't do it without a guarantor. We want 50% down. Like just insane things. They can ask what they want when push comes to shove. Like they can put whatever terms they want in there. And I saw it even, I think it was last year or even this year. No, I think it was, where like the banks were holding back lending on commercial loans to all these tariff vulnerable sectors, obviously, because they're looking at it and going, yeah, we don't want to lend to these tariff vulnerable sectors because we're probably not going to be paid back. And it's just a case of, I think like for the banks in Canada, most of them, apart from maybe one or two, like it's a one-trick pony. Most of their loans are concentrated in residential real estate. So really, until it gets really, really bad, they're just going to sit on it. They're going to keep lending. And I think there's also like a Ponzi element to it as well, where they need to keep getting paid. Like even if you're taking on losses, you have to take on new loans in order to pay for those losses. So like it goes like that for so long, and banks can move numbers around on their balance sheet and make themselves look great. Just look at the stats of banking going up to the financial crisis. Everybody thought, oh yeah, recession, banks are going to be resilient, and then it didn't happen. And even in Canada's history, actually, which is really interesting, you look at like the Canadian Deposit Insurance Corporation and all the failures listed on their website. Most of those failures occurred like between 1980 and 1993, I think. So that is like 90% of all the failures of mortgage corporations, banks, and lenders happened during that time. And obviously that was a rocky time for the economy and for real estate.
You can tell that the banks, the Canadian banks, again, there's only so many of them, right? There's so few that they are tight with the government, right? They're hand in hand. Like our friggin' prime minister is, the Bank of Canada. Like they're so tight. It's like everybody knows. Like I think they've been like given the go ahead. Like just keep lending. Don't worry, we're gonna do everything. That they do the swaps at night or whatever. Like it's all good, right? We're not gonna let your liquidity dry up. Like go ahead. And what they're doing is not only what I've seen lately too is not only are people getting mortgages. So it's not the number of clients almost now. They're just like loading up whatever they can on the client. So like you're getting a mortgage. Hey, you just sold your house, you're buying another. No problem. You know what? We're going to give you a line of credit, a home equity line of credit on top of that. So like if you do need to do rentals, like they're just loading these products onto these clients. So they're just trying to maximize the debt load on whoever's left at this point. And there's still lots of people that with good jobs and have good equity and stuff, but they want like every house like probably 60 to 70% like financed at this point. Like they don't want you paying off your mortgages, right? And you can tell there's symbols out there, and it's like it's like some conspiracy or something. But you can see that who's in cahoots and who's compliant with the government and who's not. Of course, the people usually are not; they're just fooled by them. But you look at the institutions, right? You look at the city halls, and you look at the education, the schools, and stuff. And they use identity politics to control them, and it's very simple. And this is not discrimination against anybody, but you see like the schools, they have like the big pride flags because they're told by the government you need to teach this, and you need to have this, you need to have these symbols outside your school. Same with the city hall, right? City hall, there's a lot of money that flows towards the cities and stuff too, so they have this and they put their sidewalks and everything else. But you see at the banks, like most businesses now, they know it's too risky because it is a controversial issue, whether you're pushing, they think it's negative things or whatever. Like some people like it, some people don't, but it's a very divisive thing. But they have the little flag on the door, right, just to show their compliance with the government, right? So they have like their little flags, or on the screens when you go in, right, they celebrate the right things and they say the right things, but it's all the government messaging. If you look at the screens in the bank, it's what the government talks about. It's like these social issues, and it's not like you don't have someone like holding the keys to it. Like they should have someone holding the keys to a new car on those screens, like because they got a loan from the bank to buy this car. No, they got Pride Month, and they got Indigenous history. Like it's like all these social things that the government virtue signals about but do nothing about. And also the banks are complicit with the governments because they're pushing the messaging and it's got nothing to do with the banking. Like you go in there, like it's got nothing to do. Like I don't get an extra special deal because I identify as this or that. It's just they're just pushing this narrative, and because the government's like, hey, you keep working our message, we'll protect you financially, and we'll keep giving liquidity to do what we want. So honestly, like I've noticed this a lot, right? Like when you go places,
virtue signaling.
And private businesses, it's too risky to start saying, and it's not that I agree or disagree with any of these causes, by the way. It's just they're like a private business. I'm going to pick a social issue and I'm going to stick like, well, half the people don't like Palestine, or they do like Palestine, or whatever. Like you can't pick a side. Like it's too risky for normal private business to do this. But the banks, they can do it because they monopolize and they have the government backing to do it, right? And they're told to do it. That's the thing. They're told to do this. So like you go to the bank, I'm like, what does this have to do with my banking? Like what they have on the screens? Like it's got nothing to do with my banking. Like it's like I'm here to bank, like for you guys to hold my money or invest it or whatever, right?
I totally get that. And you think about it with all the elbows up shit, right? Like if one person, their business, they say, okay, yeah, we're not going to sell to American customers, and then they are going bankrupt like a few months later, the government's not there helping them. Nobody's going to help them, even though they fell for all their virtue signaling propaganda. So it's just like, it's always mind-boggling to me how these people believe this stuff. And even as I pointed it out, because, you know, it doesn't just happen with the left, it also happens with the center or the right, whatever you want to call this. But like the move into Alberta stuff, that was all political propaganda paid for by the Alberta taxpayer, yet nobody kind of second guessed it. Nobody thought, oh, I just had all this shit happen with the pandemic and I'm moving to this more conservative place now, but I'm going to believe my new government. And now they're going to get spanked, their asses spanked about that as well, by the looks of it. A lot of people who moved there, unfortunately, going to be in the same situation as like 2015. Kinsta will give you a free month and they'll migrate your website for free. And they back that all with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Just hit the link in the description below or scan the QR code on screen to get started. Thanks to Kinsta for sponsoring today's video.